Meet my new friend Giulia. Giulia, born in Canada to parents of Filipino and Maltese descent, embodies a captivating blend of cultures. Although she was born and raised abroad, Giulia's love for the Philippines really shines through. Her profound passion for culture and her eagerness to explore her own heritage make Giulia an exceptionally interesting person to talk to. Giulia and I had a super fun conversation about how she navigates her cultural identity in Canada, her future plans in the Philippines, her experience with the Tagalog language, and so much more. I hope you guys enjoy the video.
Anong mas gusto mo, mag-Tagalog, mag-English?
My Tagalog is like very, very little. So it, I guess like here and there.
You were raised in Canada, right?
Opo, yes.
So you mostly speak English with your parents as well, or how does that work?
Opo. So my tatay, he actually left the Philippines when he was very young. So when he came dito sa Canada, he didn't speak a lot of Tagalog in his family. So, growing up as half Filipina, he didn't teach me much Tagalog because, he wasn't raised speaking Tagalog as well. And my mom, obviously, she doesn't know Tagalog.
I mean, the thing that's so interesting about stories like yours is just the mix of different cultures. I've always thought that's been like such a cool thing where you can have like two people from very different places and they have kids and their kids grow up in another place altogether and just layers and layers of cultural context. I think that's really cool.
It is, especially for me because, I'm learning about all these cultures, especially Filipino culture, right? So it's such a good experience for people, especially people like me or people like you, embracing different people's cultures and learning.
You've seen me speak Tagalog, but have you considered learning it yourself? Allow me to introduce my Beginner's Tagalog course. With 10 in-depth video lessons, this course serves as your ultimate entry point to mastering the fundamentals of the Tagalog language. Enjoy lifelong access, not only to the video lessons, but also the corresponding PDF vocabulary sheets that will help you practice new words and internalize useful sentence structures. This course is my passion project, inspired by the desire to provide a resource I wish I had when I began my Tagalog journey. Ready to learn? Check out the link in the description for more details and seize this opportunity to make Tagalog a part of your story. Now back to the video. Your dad is the Filipino side of your half Filipino, right?
Opo.
Yeah. So his parents were the ones that left the Philippines with him as a kid.
Yes.
So you said that he doesn't speak a lot of Tagalog? Like he didn't learn it, or he just doesn't use it a lot?
You know how it's kind of out of practice? You might know it when you're young, but then when you get older and you kind of stop using the language, you forget bits and pieces, right? So I think that's really what happened to him. So now he hasn't really taught me Tagalog because he only knows small fragments here and there.
I do think it's pretty interesting that even if you're from one country or another, you can forget a language over enough time. Like it doesn't seem like our brains would be able to forget a language, especially if it's something that we've used for a while. But the same thing happened with my grandpa. He was born in Canada, but he was raised by German speaking parents, and so he spoke German at home all the way up until like into his 20s. And then once his parents passed away, he didn't have anyone to speak German to. He didn't teach my mom German, and so by the time I came around, he had basically forgotten all of his German. And it's technically his first language. And then your mom's side, where is she from?
She is Maltese. So Maltese is basically people from Malta. And it's a really small island in the Mediterranean Sea. Very, very small.
Wow, so both of your parents are from islands.
Opo. Island girl.
Island girl. But you were born in Canada.
Yeah.
Have you gone to the Philippines before?
No, but I'm going in July. So this is going to be super exciting for the first time.
Yeah, your first time going to the Philippines. That is exciting. Are you going to make some content when you're over there?
Oh, for sure. If it's the first time, I want to share my journey and my experience with the Filipinos and the culture. It's just beautiful. So
what is your experience like with Filipino culture living in Canada?
I haven't been really exposed to so much Filipino culture in Canada. It took some time for me to actually realize that I had Filipino blood, because it was right after COVID-19 that I had realized, my parents are different. My dad is Filipino, he started talking about it more, so I became interested. And then just like this summer, we went to the United States and we met my Filipino family, because my Filipino family, they don't live here in Canada. So I've been exposed like just very, very recently, but they're very, very welcoming. Like they made me feel so appreciated. And it didn't matter who I was, they welcomed me into their home, and it's just very refreshing to feel that love from them.
Do you feel that being a bicultural person that you sometimes struggle to find an identity?
Not really. I accept both sides, I mean, I know I'm half, but I kind of think of it as a whole. Like I'm Filipino and I'm Maltese, like it's not like a divider, like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Just identifying as half of the culture. No, I just take it in as one and appreciate everything.
Is it kind of strange having so many different cultures at the same time?
I guess it was strange at the start because there was so much I was learning about, but at the same time, like I didn't grow up knowing I was mixed. So I guess I grew up as a Canadian, but after realizing I'm a mixed person, it's whatever, I just want to learn more about it. I have like a passion to embrace and love things about culture, especially Filipino culture, their warm-heartedness, their kindness, their gratefulness, and hospitality. It's all mixed in together and it's really made up who I am today.
Yeah, and it's cool to be interested in cultures because, like you said, when you're a kid, you don't know the culture that you're in, right? As a fish, you don't see the water. It is what it is. And then when you get older, there's an opportunity for people to see that, okay, hey, my upbringing might have been different than this person or that person, or maybe these are the cultures that I had at home. But a lot of people don't even do that, I think, when they get older. They just kind of go with whatever, like, the main culture was where they were born. And I feel like I get the vibe from those people that they're like protecting themselves from judgment. Like they don't want people to think that they're different. You're like, I'm not different than you are because I was born in Canada just like you were born in Canada. And so they don't talk about like their cultural heritage.
Their heritage, yeah.
So it's cool when people not only recognize it and say like, hey, I actually am different, but also appreciate that and be like, I'm different, but these are the ways that like it benefits my life. So I see that you definitely do that, and that's a really cool thing.
Well, I try to do it as much as I can. I mean, implementing culture and the values, what I've kind of brung up with Filipino culture, like taking the values of Filipinos, that has been a really big part of me so far in growing up.
Was your mom, she was born in Malta?
Oh no, she was born in Canada, but she has relatives in Malta. In her upbringing, she also wasn't raised Maltese. She was raised Canadian.
I've made a lot of videos on Ome TV, right? And
oh yes, I see those.
And I met a girl on there who was Filipina, but she lived in Malta, and she had been there for a few years. Her parents were working, and she was going to school, I think. And I never really connected like Filipinos with kind of a small place that I feel like not a lot of people know about. But she said that there was actually like quite a few Filipinos living in Malta.
Yeah, I actually get a few comments on my TikTok profile. Hey, I'm Filipino and I live in Malta, or they're actually half Filipino and Maltese as well, right? So I feel that good connection with people around the globe. So it's really good to have social media platforms to connect with other people that can relate to you, especially in culture.
Yeah, because it's like, how else would you find those people, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, it is a pretty random mix, like Filipino and Maltese. Even geographically, they're pretty far away.
Yeah, they are very far away.
Do you have any cultural practices in your house that would be different than, for example, me?
We ate a lot of Filipino food, like sinigang, bulalo, but it's kind of limited here in Canada because of ingredients, and also it's expensive to eat Filipino food here.
But do you guys eat like rice a lot with a lot of meals?
Oh yeah. I can't eat anything without rice. Also, I guess something that's different from my house to other Canadian homes is maybe wearing chinelas everywhere, like in the home, and also using Vicks Vapor Rub to cure all sicknesses. That's one thing you always need to have in your house is Vicks.
And you guys using chinelas in the house too?
Oh yeah. Like as soon as we get in the house, my dad will always be like, "Put on your chinelas."
And does he call them chinelas?
Well, we call them like slippers usually, but because we're trying to implement Tagalog words before we go to the Philippines so we can learn learn like small little words here and there. I guess we call them chinelas now.
That's another interesting thing is like chinelas obviously is like, the Tagalog word, but then Filipinos also, when they're speaking English, like you just said, will call them slippers. But that's also
Yeah.
like almost Filipino English, I think, at this point. I would call it flip-flops.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
for us, like slippers are usually like fuzzy, and because like obviously in Canadian culture we don't wear flip-flops in the house, but people might wear slippers, but we have a different definition of what a slipper is. So you're getting ready for your trip in July, you're learning some Tagalog with your dad.
He's trying to teach me as much as he can. I'm giving my best shot at trying to ace my Tagalog before we get to Philippines. I'm working on it.
What can you say in Tagalog?
Kamusta ka na? Magandang hapon, magandang gabi. Konti lang. Mabuti ikaw.
What about some food items like rice,
No.
kanin?
Kanin. Yeah. I feel like I know what it is in Tagalog, but I just don't remember.
Can you like
'Cause I'm
understand when your dad speaks Tagalog?
I guess because I'm learning like small words here and there, if I put it together in my mind, it works out to a somewhat translation, but that's kind of about it with Tagalog. Yeah.
What part of the Philippines is your dad from?
Zambales. So like the upper region.
Is there a lot of Filipino people where you live?
I would say that there's a fair amount, but I guess not a lot. I would say there's more like Italian and Portuguese people here.
Yeah, Toronto is such a diverse city.
Yeah, it is. And it's growing its diversity, which is lovely.
It's cool how like as Canadians we can experience a lot of different cultures without ever leaving our own country. Like a lot of people are surprised that I learned to speak Tagalog but I haven't been to the Philippines. And
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, I don't think it's that crazy if you look at the Filipino population where I live. Going to a country is like the more common way of learning a different language, but like
Yeah.
all you really need is the people around you that speak the language, right?
Well, the GTA does have a lot of Filipinos, but many Filipinos that I have met, they don't speak Tagalog on a daily basis, or even when I meet them, usually just speak English.
It depends what you look like as well, I think. Like, let's say a Filipino person, like full Filipino person that was born and raised in Canada, they might not necessarily speak Tagalog, but
Yeah.
Filipinos will try to speak Tagalog to them.
Yeah, like with my dad, right? We'll go to a Filipino shop or a restaurant, and the Filipino people who work there, they'll speak to my dad in Tagalog, but my dad responds back in English.
Yeah, it's what he's more comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
It's all based on the way that you look, because for me, I want to speak Tagalog. And so I always speak Tagalog with Filipinos. And
Yeah.
I would say about 75% of the time, they'll only respond in English. And it's because I'm obviously not Filipino, right?
Yeah.
People can see that from across the room. And so even if I can show Filipinos that like I am proficient enough to hold a conversation with them, they still feel kind of uncomfortable about speaking Tagalog with me. It's interesting how culture can disappear or change in one generation. If you take a kid that's like 5 years old from any country in the world and bring him to Canada, they'll be a Canadian. That's just how it works.
Yeah, that's just how it works.
What do you think is something that parents can do to maintain their cultural heritage at home if they live in a different country?
I guess for me, the biggest thing that I wish was probably for my dad to, even though he spoke little Tagalog, maybe speak to me, here and there and help me learn the Tagalog language. And I think that's what some parents who have children in, North America, for example, could do to help and prevent the loss of culture and the want to learn for the culture. It's really hard to keep the language practice in a different countries if you speak a lot of English. I would definitely say try to speak to your children in your native tongue.
Yeah, language and culture are so interwoven. They're so connected, aren't they? It's hard to be fully connected to a culture without speaking the language.
Also, food in the household, like expose them to cultural foods. Like for me, once my dad showed me the Filipino tradition to eat rice with every meal, I couldn't stop, That kind of became part of my culture at home, right? And also eating at Filipino restaurants, that can also kind of expose you a little bit bit more to the culture because of the environment too. I had this one experience where I went to a Filipino restaurant and these Filipino people sat beside us and they just openly had a conversation. And that's when I really started learning about the openness and warm-heartedness of the Filipino people, right? So that exposed me to more of the Filipino culture.
Something that I wanted to know about you is your content. You have a YouTube channel, you have TikTok. How long have you been doing that and how did you get started?
TikTok started, I think, during COVID. I was just bored, you know, and then when my dad started talking more about Filipino stuff, I started to go on, Filipino TikTok one day and I was like, this is entertaining. I want to be a part of this. And YouTube, I just started very recently back in October. It was something that just happened and I was just like, you know what? I have TikTok. Why not open a YouTube account? I think it would be entertaining for the people I have on my TikTok profile to get a longer glimpse into what I do in my life, how I like to embrace being Filipina.
I feel like the Filipino audience on social media is really loyal too.
Oh yeah, they're always there for you when you need them. I mean, I posted a YouTube video about why I talk so much about being Filipina, right? And I told the Filipinos my story, right? And they said, you know what, no matter what happens, we're always going to love you. We're always going to support you. You are Filipina at heart. I really like that about Filipinos.
So is content creation something that you would like to do full time?
I guess it's more of a hobby for me and something that I do for entertainment for other people, but also for myself, getting in touch with people worldwide, right? Because I've never gone outside of North America. So I turn to social media for that outlet to reach the other people from different cultures and meet more Filipinos and get to know what they're really like.
What do you think the next step is in embracing your Filipino identity?
Number one would be to visit the Philippines, right? Because I've never been there. And also meeting my family. I have met family in California, but there are many of them waiting for me in the Philippines, and I've never seen them before. And family to me is such an important value. So to go home to the Philippines and to meet them, I think is a big part of my next steps and identity as a Filipina.
Do you have a favorite Filipino dish?
I don't know. Would you classify halo halo as a dish? It's more, I guess, a drink, dessert. I don't know. I like it because it's like me. It's like mixed everything together in one. So it's just like, I can relate.
You're right.
Masarap.
Masarap, that's your drink. I saw a video on, I think it was on your TikTok, where you were eating balut.
Yeah. Opo. I tried that in California. My titas, they had bought a bunch of balut eggs and I've never tried balut before, right? They were like, try it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it right now. They brought it and why not?
Would you eat it again?
Oh yeah. But I would eat it in the Philippines this time just because I'd like to compare the two, like one in America versus the Philippines. Which balut is better?
You can learn some more Tagalog when you're there as well. It'd be kind of cool if we recorded another one of these in like a year and we did it all in Tagalog.
The next one, I'll be able to speak Tagalog 100%. I promise.
How long are you there for?
1 month. It's a little while, and I know my titas, they're going to want me to learn how to speak Tagalog. They've been like, Giulia, start learning. When you go to the Philippines, you have to talk in Tagalog. So I know I'm really like passionate about learning Tagalog now, I want to be able to understand all the chisme.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if that isn't motivation, I don't know what is. Marites
number
ka.
one. Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Ikaw, Marites.